I want to start with just getting the cases. Last time we talked about niching, and it's been incredible for you. I mean, I think of a few people, honestly, when I think of trucking, and your name is always mentioned, right? In that, from a peer referral, what if an individual was going to try to originate their own cases? You got Weatherright with 1-800-TRUCK-WRECK. You got Shannara with tons of billboards. Mungie, I saw him on I-24 all the way to I-75 South, all the way to Miami from Illinois. What do you think the best tactic you've seen for acquiring these cases? I mean, just big picture, like, what do you see that's working to get these commercial policies?
Well, I think that there's a couple things. First of all of those people you mentioned are all friends of mine who I personally helped try to build their trucking practices. I think that you even within trucking, so the way I break it down is, so you've got your catastrophic truck cases, and then you've got your, what I'm going to call, more run-of-the-mill truck cases. Now, your more run-of-the-mill truck cases, as compared to run-of-the-mill auto wreck cases, still have a much, much higher value, right? So they're more attractive cases for that reason. But we're dealing with different worlds from a marketing perspective, in my view. If you are looking to get a volume of trucking cases, so that you're going to have lots of broken bone cases, so lots of various levels of TBI cases, you're going to have lots of those kinds of things, versus your death cases and your amputation cases and your very serious orthopedic, sort of life-changing kind of those kinds of injuries, or very, very serious brain injury, cases. From my perspective, I chose a long time ago to be a lawyer-to-lawyer marketer, and I really view that as one path. So the Witherites and the Mungies and Shannara, and I've done cases with all of those types of firms, not all, but lots of those types of firms who spend that kind of money on that sort of consumer marketing. I don't do that. So I think that you look at it and say, you have to first choose, are you going to be a B2B kind of a marketing person? So are you going to market to the lawyers who are marketing, or are you going to be a B2C? And if you're going to be a B2C, first of all, I'm not an expert in that, but I would study those names that you brought up. I mean, I remember the phone call I got from Amy Witheright telling me, she had 1-800-CAR-WRECK, and that's what she built her initial practice on. And she told me she's going to build this around trucking. And I said, you know what? It probably will work. And of course, I think that she would tell you it has. I don't know all the details of her practice, but she certainly has a large volume of trucking cases. So I think that I would study people like you. I'd be calling, I'm a subject matter expertise in trucking. I'm not a subject matter expert in consumer to consumer marketing. I'd be working with people like you and some other folks, and people are doing interesting things. They're doing things on radio now that's kind of ticked back up, whereas it had fallen off. There's obviously all the stuff on the internet and billboards, and then there's the creative things that people are doing to, let former clients know, let other people in the communities that they operate within know that they're available, and very specifically for trucking cases. I think you got to ask for you got to make sure the people in your communities know what you're looking for, if that makes sense. And I think it's oftentimes overlooked.
Yeah, and I think, just leaning into that was one of my follow-up questions. I think David Craig does a good job of that with his positioning in Miami. You got Amanda who's stopping a truck with the heel. You got
I met her for the first time at NTL this year. She didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who she was, but we now know each other.
Oh, wonderful. You got Gordon McKernan, an individual standing on trucks. You got, Adler yelling at trucks. Is that what you mean? So they're obviously speaking to the consumer, saying, hey, look, I'm representative. You got Daryl Isaacs talking about trucking, and they're speaking to that. And then you've got you're on my podcast. We're here talking, B2B. You got the peers listening. We're talking about trucking. I'm coming to you with your expertise. Is that what you see on the difference between the B2B to the B2C?
It is. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I mean, people say, that it takes so much money to do, business to consumer, lawyer to consumer marketing. You're going to be competing with all these names that you've thrown out there and hundreds more, thousands more. And the amount of money that pours in is overwhelming. Right. But then you look at me. I mean, I spent eight figures last year easily on referral checks, to a lot of those kind of people who are spending their money marketing. So, from I think I think that's the division point. To me, what makes the most sense to divide, and I don't know if it's trucking or any other kind of a practice that on the PI world, I think you're either the kind of lawyer who is trying to get business in directly, or you're the kind of lawyer who is trying to attract referrals from other lawyers. And then there's a lot of people who are hybrid, who are trying to do some of both, and with varying degrees of success. Because I think one of the things that we need to recognize is the world's not really truly homogeneous here, right? I mean, I'm a national player, and I've done cases in 40 some odd states, and that's my life. I'm on lots of airplanes, lots of Zoom calls, all those kind of things. Most lawyers don't do that. Most lawyers have a community that is sort of their local area that they're trying to stay within. That's where they live. That's where they do their business. That's what they want to attract business from. And by the way, we talked last time about when you niche down, one of the things that happens as you niche your practice down in terms of practice area is you tend to have to let the geography grow because there's not as many of those kinds of cases. So that's a tendency. It's not always true, but that's a tendency. So I think that how I would be going about doing this if I were trying to be a business to consumer lawyer is I would be talking to people like you. First of all, I'd be learning what is it, and then I'd still try to look for some edge that makes me different, right? So either because I have a community that I'm a part of, that I already have a trust relationship with, they already know who I am, in which case I just need to make sure they know my name and think of my name instead of these other people's names when they think of a truck crash. So I need to do something to make sure that they see that.
Yep.
And I have to do that repeatedly. I also, if I'm really going to be a truck crash expert, I want to do things regularly to demonstrate to the world that that's not just a marketing ploy, that's the real deal. And then the final thing we haven't talked about yet is I still believe that one of the best marketing things, whether you're lawyer to consumer or lawyer to lawyer, is go try a couple of cases, because there's just no substitute for that. I saw statistics a few years ago of what percentage of PI lawyers have actually gone in and tried a case to a jury to conclusion, and I was shocked by how little the number was. It's like, I mean, don't hold me to these numbers, but it's down there next to like 1%, maybe even less than 1% of lawyers. And so that's a way we can also start to divide the world into who, because you don't get treated the same if you're not going to try the case.